All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. So, thank you all so much for joining us this morning. My name is Chelsea Tabakian Odom, and I am the chair for the Young Leaders Council here at Big Brothers Big Sisters of Metro Atlanta. And I also have the honor of being a big sister to a young lady named Kennedy. She's in the middle school, and it has just truly been an honor to be her big and watch her grow up, and just flourish through our relationship. The relationship we've had has impacted me probably more than I've honestly impacted her. It's just been so wonderful. And just again, thank you so much for joining this series. It's a fantastic time to learn more about the agency and also learn more about the work that we do. Our mission here at Big Brothers Big Sisters of Metro Atlanta is to create and support one-to-one mentoring matches that ignite the power and promise of youth. And to support that mission, the initiative called Big Futures has been launched, which serves approximately 400 high school age youth to equip them for their future and beyond in the following ways: one-to-one mentoring, college readiness, career development, and life and leadership skills. And on the PowerPoint today, you'll actually see a link there so you can read more about the program at bbbsatl.org/big futures. I want to just take a moment and thank our sponsors of this program: Monet Gratitude, UPS, Fiserv, and the CLA Foundation for making this wonderful program happen. Today, we have me as your co-host, and our wonderful, wonderful big sister and YLC vice chair, Alex Ginsberg, will be our panel moderator today. Also joining us is Michael Berthium, a YLC member and events committee member. He will be our career advisor. And a warm welcome to our panelists for today's session themed sports and entertainment. Jacques Wells, he's a big brother and assistant director of athletics for operations and camps at Agnes Scott College. Andrea Carter, vice president of corporate social responsibility at the Atlanta Hawks and State Farm Arena. And Sasha Gwin, manager of arena programming at Atlanta Hawks and State Farm Arena. I'd also like to welcome Ron Knight, assistant director of minor league operations at the Atlanta Braves, and VJ Galloway, manager of product development, strategic solutions and partnerships at Learfield IMG College. And now I'm going to pass it over to my vice chair of the YLC, Alexandra Ginsberg, to get us kicked off. Alex, over to you.
Thank you, Chelsea. So again, thank you to everyone for joining. We're really excited to spend this rainy Saturday morning with you. A quick kind of overview of what we're going to cover today. So we're going to kind of take it from a macro level, introduce you to all of our panelists. They'll give you a brief background about what they do, kind of what they did in high school, college that led them to their current role. Next, we're actually going to get into kind of the day-to-day workings of their job, some of the perks, the benefits, the challenges. And then the third part will be breaking into the industry, and you'll learn some tips and tricks that you can use to kind of break into the sports and entertainment field. And in between each of those sections, Michael, who's our career coach, he's going to jump in and give maybe a 1 to 2 minute kind of overview of everything the panelists said and give you some easy kind of tips that you can put into action following this panel. So a few quick housekeeping notes. One, unfortunately, we can't all be in person today, but if we can kind of make it seem like we are, feel free to put your cameras on. We'd love to see all of your faces. Two, we ask that everyone mutes their microphone just to kind of get rid of any background noise. And thirdly, and most importantly, we want to make sure that you get the most out of this panel. So if you have any questions, no question is too dumb, no question is too big, by all means, go ahead, type it in the chat. And if you feel comfortable, feel free to even unmute yourself and you can ask the question kind of for the group. Okay, so I think we're about ready to kick it off. We're going to start and we're going to go around with each of our panelists and they're going to give us a brief overview of what their current role is and their responsibilities. Jacques, would you like to kick it off for us?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So Jacques Wells, currently at Agnes College. Just a brief overview of my position encompasses everything from facility management to, scheduling for our athletic teams, ordering apparel, and organizing any camps that we hold within our facilities. So what that entails is pretty much everything from, just the listing of activities and just the schedules for camps and just registration, the whole nine as it relates to camps in particular. But in terms of the operations piece, it's everything from making sure we have travel for our teams when they go to play other teams at their at other respective colleges, as well as, just doing everything across the board, making sure they have jerseys and new jerseys on time, and making sure that our facilities are upkept. So if there's anything wrong in our facilities, whether it's a toilet going down or whether it's, something wrong with one of our basketball goals, anything in our facility pretty much falls under my leadership to, get those things fixed. So in short, that's a lot of what encompasses my day-to-day.
That's awesome. Thank you. Andrea, how about you?
Yes, also thanks for having me. As you all mentioned, I'm Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility for the Hawks and State Farm Arena. And that's really just a fancy title for saying I help our community do great things. I help our organization do great things in the community. And so in my role, I am to deliver on our promise to be a community asset. And so we look at ways that we can go out and improve communities where our fans live, work, and play. And we do that through a variety of initiatives. And I'll just mention a few. We have a court renovation program where we go into different neighborhoods and we will build or renovate existing courts so that we give kids opportunities to play and things to do after school. And then we come back alongside that with additional programming at those basketball courts. We renovate spaces inside of rec centers. So if a community says, hey, we want a dance studio, we might go into that community and deliver on that promise. And so for us, it really is looking at how we can be a community asset, whether it's through our programming, whether it's through our players that we integrate into things that they want to do into the community, or if it is State Farm Arena being the first arena in the nation to serve as a polling location during the last election cycle. For us, it's all about how can we impact lives and do good at the same time.
It's fantastic. Thank you. Sasha, how about you?
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Sasha Gwin. I work along with Andrea at Atlanta Hawks and State Farm Arena. I am the arena programming manager. My group focuses on booking non-Hawks events. So anything from your Disney on Ice to big meetings and conferences to all of the top touring concerts coming into Atlanta who perform at State Farm Arena. So we deal with everything from talking to promoters and agents on the front end, finding a date that works for the event, all the way through we're doing contracts and then financial things at the end with settling up money and making sure everyone's paid following the show.
Very cool. Love it. Ron, Atlanta Braves.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Ron Knight, Assistant Director of Minor League Operations for the Atlanta Braves. Thank you to Big Brothers Big Sisters for having me. It's an honor to be here. It's my 12th season with the Atlanta Braves. Our group focuses primarily on minor league players and their development as players to get to the major leagues. So once a player is drafted out of high school or college, it's our responsibility to look at those players' strengths and weaknesses and help them to maintain or enhance those strengths while also improving those weaknesses so they can one day play at the major league level, which is what you see on television. We have minor league teams scattered throughout the Southeast and in the Dominican Republic. My role specifically is just to ensure that everything is operating the way it's supposed to. And when I say everything operating, I mean everything falling under the line with budgets, player and staff contracts, international players coming from the Dominican Republic, Mexico, Venezuela, amongst several countries, and their visas are here and they're here able to enter the United States legally and play for a sports team. So it's been an awesome experience to be able to watch baseball and watch games for a living. When I get home and we're all eating dinner, I'm watching the Braves game, and that is what I do. I get in trouble for not watching Braves games. So I'm happy to be here. Look forward to your questions and from learning from my fellow panelists.
That's great. Thank you, Ron. And last but certainly not least, BJ.
Say hi, everyone. Say excited to be here. Say as was mentioned earlier, my name is BJ Galloway. I am the Manager of Product Development, Strategic Solutions and Partnerships for a company called Learfield IMG College, which is probably not a familiar name to most people. But what our company does, we are hired by universities across the country, big and small, to connect their universities and their brand to major retailers and corporations that are interested in advertising with them. So basically, I, as a product manager, I'm responsible for creating relationships with brands and corporations that are interested in developing a college-specific asset, or excuse me, a college-specific product. And as we go through this, there'll be more examples of who I work with and things I do, so you get a better understanding. You understand that our company is a behind-the-scenes company that you're not supposed to hear of, and you're not supposed to know. It'll become clear as we go throughout the panel.
Awesome. So thank you for all of our panelists for those introductions. I think if anything is clear from that, you can see that the sports and entertainment field is huge. All of our panelists have a lot of different backgrounds, experiences. So I'm excited for all of you to learn from them. And we're going to jump into things. I'm going to actually ask our panelists to maybe date themselves a bit. Think back to your high school years. I know we have primarily high schoolers or recent high school graduates on the call. So we're going to kick it off with Andrea and Jacques. I would like to know, did either of you play sports in high school? And did that have an impact on where you are now?
I'll go first. I did not play sports in high school. In fact, I barely even played sports at all. And when I say barely, I think in 5th or 6th grade, I tried out for a team. I made it through one game. I realized that was not my calling. So I sat down and sat out, and that was my only time at sports. I am 5'2", and not that being 5'2" means you can't play. You can certainly play the game. But when I was in high school, I did keep stats for our varsity boys basketball team. And so I was able to still participate in a way that allowed me to be around the game, the love of the game, and really to learn more about it. And so, yeah, I think for most people on the call, I just want to say you don't have to be an athlete in order to have a career in sports. There certainly are many within our organization that are former athletes. But I think it's really some of the skills and the knowledge that we'll talk about as we go through this panel that will help to prepare you. So not a college athlete, not a high school athlete, not an athlete at all.
Thank you for that. And Jacques, how about you?
So for me, I played basketball and ran cross country in high school, and in college, wasn't a scholarship athlete, so I didn't play my first few years, but I walked on my senior year in college, and I played basketball, which led into my journey just working in athletics. I was a student athlete, and I was familiar with some of the folks in and around our department when I was a player. So I needed an internship to complete my degree course. And I called on one of our administrators, and he allowed me to intern in the athletic department, and that kickstarted my career working in college athletics.
And thank you for showing me up. I really appreciate that.
No, I think this is great though. And you kind of see both sides of the spectrum, and you can understand maybe you do currently play sports, maybe you don't play sports at all, but clearly both have ended up in the industry and are doing great things. Okay, so now for the rest of our panelists, Ron, Sasha, and BJ. I believe each of you had some experience with sports in high school and college. Do you want to touch on your experiences?
Yeah, I can go first on that one. I was a competitive cheerleader all through high school and through college, and it did not impact me one bit. Going into college, I always thought I was going to be in the medical field doing physical therapy. That's mostly, you know, moms and dads are kind of like, be a lawyer, be a doctor. That's kind of what my initial path was. But I just realized that that wasn't for me. I knew I loved music, and this might date me a bit, but I loved TRL and 106 in Park. I don't know if you probably don't know that, but also award shows are what really drew me to like wanting to be in that live entertainment environment. So that's kind of what drew me more to what I do today than actually playing sports or doing competitive cheer or anything like that. That was more for fun.
Love it. Ron, how about you?
Great question. In high school, I played soccer. Soccer was my primary sport, and I also ran cross country just as a way to shape for soccer. So working in baseball, you can, question I always get is, you didn't play baseball at all. I actually stopped playing baseball when I was 10 years old. At that age, I just wanted to play what my friends were playing in the area I grew up. Soccer was the sport. I knew I wanted to work in baseball from a really young age. So working in or playing sports in high school didn't really influence the decision to play baseball. I already knew I wanted to do it by the time I got to high school. But I knew that I was always curious, they would put together the JV and the varsity teams. How did they come up with, like, who do they put where? Why did this guy who's a freshman make the varsity team and this senior who didn't even make the varsity team? Like, why? Doesn't that senior deserve it over the freshman? And those are the kinds of questions that I asked. And kind of like Andrea, I didn't play baseball, past middle school. I worked with people who played in the major leagues and are in the Hall of Fame. Please don't ever tell them this, but I gave up baseball because I was afraid of the ball. I was terrified of the ball. So soccer, it was softer, it was rounder. I can run fast. That's my game. So great question. Thank you.
Yeah, so in high school or growing up, I played all sports: baseball, basketball, football, ran track growing up. And my story is a little different from Ron's. He kind of saw that and kind of planned for, hey, interested in this. I played growing up, and it's just what I knew. So when it was time to go to college, my high school career, so to speak, my high school experience in sports, it was like, hey, well, all I know is sports, so I guess that's something I will do in college as well. So I didn't really say, hey, I'm interested in the sports industry, the entertainment industry, but it's what I know. So I would say my experience playing sports growing up did influence me getting into sports as for a living, but it wasn't thought out. It wasn't something that I was like super passionate about, or at least I didn't think so at the time. It was just, guess what's next, and I think this makes sense. Let's do it. So, yeah, not what I would recommend, but it's worked out for me. So yeah, take those two.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing that. So I guess this is actually a good segue. I want to touch base a little bit on kind of high school, college. What did you study? What did you learn? Did you maybe have a mentor that helped you get to your role today? Ron, Jacques, and Andrea, do you all have any comments on that?
Yeah, I'll go first. My mentor, again, I was very blessed and fortunate. I knew I wanted to work in baseball at 10, 11 years old, so 5th, 6th grade. My dad at that point in my life was my mentor. He was the sports fan and kind of led me and, hey, it'd be cool if you did this and cool if you did that. I, of course, had gotten mentors as I got older, but my father was the person who guided me. And knowing, again, that I probably was not going to be a professional athlete, what was the next best thing? Well, my desire and passion to work in sports, I knew I'm going to be competing against people who maybe played baseball in high school or the minor leagues or even Major League Baseball. So how could I separate myself if I didn't even play past 10? And again, afraid of the ball. So I went as heavy as I could on the education side. In undergraduate, I studied business management and also developed my ability to speak Spanish. So Spanish was my second major. And again, I just lived in I won't say fear, but my concern was that wasn't going to be enough. So after I finished undergrad, I went to graduate school and got my MBA, which is a Master's of Business Administration. And then one master's wasn't hard enough, so I got a second one in sports administration. So business, sports administration, Spanish, all that collectively, by the time I graduated graduate school, I felt put me in a better position to compete against those who did and played the sport themselves. So all of that was something that I really focused on to separate myself.
It clearly showed. So I think it's very accomplished.
I have everyone fooled still.
Andrea, how about you?
Yeah, I'll go next. And I was going to say first, just want to touch on that point about you having a major in Spanish as well, because I think that's important for folks that are on the call that if you can become proficient in a second language, certainly as our country and world becomes more diverse, I think that is critically important. And one of the regrets that I have, not that it's too late. And you talk about dating yourself, Sasha. When I was coming out of high school, I wanted to be, I'm probably the oldest person on this panel, what for sure. I want to be the next Brent Musburger. So I know the kids have no idea who that is, but I wanted to be a sportscaster. And so I went to Spelman College. I majored in English. I had a minor in communication, and that was the path that I was headed until I realized that I did not like being in front of the camera. I like being behind the scenes, actually making things happen. And so for me, my journey to sports has been some pivots along the way. And I think the lesson there is you may not get there in a straight line, but you can ultimately still get there. So coming out of Spelman, I really used that education to go into the field of PR. I worked in entertainment PR for a little bit, and then at Boys and Girls Clubs of America, their national headquarters here in Atlanta, for 5 years, and was able to develop relationships with folks that worked in the NBA at the WNBA based on kind of the work we did at Boys and Girls Club, which helped me to get into the Atlanta Hawks, where I've been able to take those skills that I learned in college, those skills that I learned in the PR field, and really transfer those into the work that I do now. So whether it's thinking critically, strategic planning, being able to write, being able to organize events and community work, and I've really been able to use all of that to get me ultimately where I am. So I took a little bit of a zigzag, but was still able to get here.
Love it. And Jacques, how about you?
So for me, my journey was a little different. I started off as a business major in college. So took a few courses and I'm just like, yeah, it was just boring. It wasn't for me. So I figured, I had a friend that was an exercise science major, and I didn't know what that meant to be an exercise science major, but it sounded cooler than business. So that's the route I went. And after a while, I thought that I was going to be a physical therapist similar to Sasha, and that just didn't pan out. It was just a competitive program to get into. So when I needed to get my internship after being a student athlete, I called on some people that helped me with my paperwork to be an official student athlete. And that person kind of took me under their wing, and I was an intern under that person. And once my internship got completed, they offered me a graduate assistantship. They liked me being around and figured I didn't really have my plans gathered in what I was going to do post-college. So he said, hey, get your master's. So I was 23 at the time. And I said, hey, the master's is going to take me 2 years. Master's at 25. Why not? You guys are going to pay for it. Why wouldn't I, get some more free education? So that continued to lead me on to where I was now. And then, I had some mentors growing up, some coaches and things that just unintentionally introduced me to other sports. So I was a basketball through and through was my sport, but my coach at the time introduced me to cross country to stay in shape, introduced me to golf and some other things just to kind of widen my horizon as a basketball player to, just really bolster my resume when I would start applying for college and those things. So I truly just tried to apply, a lot of things that kind of came my way and kind of took it by the horns and, just led me into what I'm doing now. And I'm, kind of get a chance to intersect my love for business that I started out with just from the more so just being around money standpoint. And I intersect that with my love of sports. So I'm able to kind of handle both sides and doing a lot of those background kind of budgetary operational things, which I'm currently doing right now.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I think as we can see, all of our panelists really have diverse backgrounds. So it's important to kind of know that there's not just one path you need to follow, plenty of different things. You can try a lot on the way and eventually get to where you are. So as we wrap up this section, I kind of want to go popcorn style, have each of our participants chime in. I know, Andrea, you had a great piece of advice. You said you would recommend that all of these, our participants on the panel, that if they can, they should learn another language. So our panelists, do any of you have a quick piece of advice that you might advise looking back on your high school years?
I'll jump in here. So one piece of advice I would give is try to broaden your horizon as much as you can, as early as you can. Like I said, my story was, hey, I went the sports route because it's what I did all my life. I know a lot of other people that I grew up with that did that same thing. They're in a totally different field right now. And one of the things I've struggled with was finding out where I wanted to be, even within my industry. So I think it would have benefited me greatly as a high schooler or even younger than that, getting a job here, a little side job here, or a little retail job, whatever it may be that you can explore that. If you have people in your family, if you can shadow them on the job or just talk with them, just find out all that the world has to offer from a career standpoint, because you may find things that you're interested in that you had no idea, or things you just didn't know existed. And that may direct your path. So finding out that as early as possible, or what options are out there, I think will do yourself a great justice in the future.
And I can kind of piggyback off that. I remember being in high school and just kind of not knowing what I wanted to do. And I kind of just not feeling lost, but just kind of feeling swept up. There's prom, there's cheerleading competitions. Like I would just take time to kind of like what BJ said, like expand your horizons, get it, like do research, kind of think about what you want to do. Because it wasn't until college until I kind of figured out my direct path. And it's okay. Like don't feel down because you don't have your life planned out in high school. Like it's all right. And you're going to figure it out. But like, yeah, get out there, research, see what you like to do, try many things, because I had to try so many things before I found out that I wanted to be in booking. I didn't even know booking was a thing in high school. But just get out there, try new things, see what you like, see what you hate, see what you never want to do again. And that can really propel you to being like living in your purpose and doing what you want to do and what you love to do.
And I'll echo one point that you made, Sasha, and that really is about sometimes it's finding out what you don't want to do. And I think that can be equally as important, because that is certainly, as I talked about, something that happened for me that I went in a direction. I was like, oh, I don't like it. So the ability to be resilient and to be able to pivot, I think is critical. I wouldn't have told myself this in high school because we did not have social media at the time, but I would say it for young people today. I think it's also important just in terms of how you are building and using your own personal brand and what is it that you are stand for and that you are putting out to the world, because you will be surprised that when folks are looking at people for internships or jobs, there are folks that will scan and look for folks, their social media profile, and see, hey, what is Sasha up to, or what is Andrea up to, and to make sure that what you're putting out there
else, bro, like they see you.
And just to make sure what you're putting out there is really what you want to be representative of you. And you can do that to your advantage as well. So you can start to show your love for sports or your commitment to community service, and make sure that those things are things that you are portraying to the public. So I would offer that as well.
That is great advice. Very relevant to our participants. So thank you all for that background. I think it's really helpful to kind of learn about who you are, where you came from, how you got to where you are today. Now I'm going to pass it over to Michael, who's going to do a quick summary and a little exercise for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. I'm Michael. Happy to be talking with you all here. I'm going to focus more on these exercises. I think everyone just gave some excellent advice. And so I think the summary is probably less relevant here. So this is the part that's going to be most active for all of the non-panelists, or all of the participants that are here on the call. We're gonna try to help you put together an elevator pitch, which is one of the first things in your toolkit as you think about like getting a job or getting into these career fields or starting with an internship or any of those things. An elevator pitch is just a way for you to put your best foot forward by introducing yourself or even starting a job interview. I like to think of it as an elevator pitch. Think of it as if you were in an elevator with just one other person who has your absolute dream job. Think of it like they're the head coach of like the Atlanta Hawks, or they're any other job. They're the person that you want to look like. If you were to start a conversation with them, the natural flow is, hey, I'm Michael. What's your name? I'm Ron. Tell me about yourself. And then you answer. And that can be kind of daunting if you don't have any idea what to do. So I want all the littles, all the guests, all the participants, take out a piece of paper and a pen that should be separate from the rest of these notes, because you're going to fill it out throughout the day. Or if you're taking notes on your computer, just take notes at the very bottom of this notepad. And we're going to start now with the first piece. So if you go to the next page, Tara, we're going to start with just the beginning. So the beginning is real simple. It's just a sentence or two about your background. As you get older, the sentence will change. You'll notice that, Sasha started with, what she did in high school, what she did in college, and what, she was a competitive cheerleader. That's just the beginning, right? And that'll evolve as you go through. So at your age, this might be something as simple as, hi, my name is Candy. I grew up in Atlanta and played soccer at Duluth High School. My favorite subjects there were math and art. So I want you to actually write out this 1 or 2 sentences for yourself. That's just going to be the beginning of your elevator pitch. And we're going to help you fill that out throughout the rest of the day with these quick little exercises. And then at the end of the day, you'll have this elevator pitch that you could potentially use if you were, to end up in an elevator with the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, Arthur Smith, or somebody like that. So
great. Thank you, Michael. To any of our participants, do you have questions about this elevator pitch or the exercise Michael just outlined? If you do, feel free to jump in or type them in the chat. But again, we want to make sure that you're getting the most out of this. Okay.
Can we give people like 10 seconds to do it? I just saw people get up for like a piece of paper and whatnot. So people are actually doing it, which is great. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, so now we are going to jump into the second portion of our panel. I think this is actually the most fun and interesting part of this panel. We're going to get into kind of a day in the life, what each of our panelists' jobs look like, challenges, perks, benefits, kind of the more glamorous, fun side. Okay, so we're going to kick it off, and this is open to all of our panelists. If each of you want to share an example of a current project that you're working on.
I can start. So right now it's kind of a weird time in the arena, so we're having games, but they're limited capacity. But one thing that's really cool that I think my group is working on right now is we have a bunch of television shoots and movie shoots coming into the building recently. Anywhere from like BET shows, we have HBO Max movies, things like that. So that's something that we've kind of been working on, something that's a little different. We usually have basketball going full force right now, and concerts before COVID world. But now that we have a little bit more downtime, we have the ability to host some more like television shoots and become like a television set for a few days. We even have something coming to look at it for like a month. So it's been a booming business that we haven't really been able to explore as much as I would like. But now that we have this crazy, like, weird opportunity, we're able to explore like film, which has been really cool and different, and I'm learning a whole bunch about it. But yeah, that's something really different right now that we're working on.
And then
I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll jump in. Right now I am in Venice, Florida with 125 Atlanta Braves minor league players, and on Monday morning, we are going to tell them which team they make, and they're going to. So some players will be going to Gwinnett in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Some will go to Pearl, Mississippi. Others will go to Rome, Georgia, and others will go to Augusta, which technically where they're going is Augusta, South Carolina. But and then unfortunately, there are some players who will not make a team, but they'll just stay here in Florida. And guess who gets to tell them who doesn't make the team? So I drew the short straw there. However, the projects that we're working on is just figuring out which players make which teams. There are guys who, want to, they want to get promotions, just like, making the freshman team. Next year, you want to make the JV team. There are some guys who are going to repeat the level that they last played in. And unfortunately, as many of us know, I don't know if we all know this, but last year, because of COVID, minor league baseball was canceled the entire season. So these guys have not played in a minor league baseball game since 2019. And, it's been a challenge to help them grow without being able to play games. And right now the goal is just to make sure we put players on the right rosters. And once we tell them, we need to find apartments for them. We need to help them find furniture when they get to these places. And these guys do not make millions of dollars. So that's the challenge in it. The perk is I get to travel and visit these guys and help them with all of it. So just bouncing around and seeing parts of the country that I wouldn't otherwise get to see has been a lot of fun for me.
I'm curious, Ron, too, when you mentioned that guess who has to tell them, what does that kind of conversation look like? I know a lot of what we do seems like fun and, you know, glitz and glam, but then there are those times where you have to have those difficult conversations. So I'm curious as to how those conversations go.
Sure. Sasha, you're going to be my guinea pig here. Let's just say, you know, Sasha was, I'll keep it relative to, I guess, cheerleading. She wants to cheer at Kennesaw State football games. And, you know, there's, you know, she can cheer at, you know, let's just say she's cheering at, I'm just making this up as I go, but she's cheering at Kennesaw State cross country meets, but she wants to cheer at Kennesaw State football games. You know, hey, Sasha, we looked at our squad, and you know, right now we see you as someone who, you know, what you do is you do this really well. You do this really well. But what we need you to do better is this. And so what we're going to do is, rather than put you in front of, you know, thousands of screaming fans, we want you to really focus on this over the next, you know, 4 weeks. So that way we can get you better. And what it'll end up doing is it'll make you better in this area, so that when you're in front of fans, you're better prepared for it. And whenever we talk to a player about the reasons that, you know, the decisions that we make, we also tell them why they didn't make the team that they did. And it's not that we don't believe in you, because you know what, we've been proven wrong before. We've told players things and we say, you know, hey, you know, prove us wrong. We'll tell them what those issues are and how you can get better at it. And we always try to leave the player with just someone who has been in their particular situation before. And that player 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we had the same conversation with that player, and that player is now in the major leagues today. So for someone like Sasha, hey, we told this person 5 years ago the same thing that we're telling you. She worked hard at it, and she cheered, you know, 3 years for Kennesaw State football, and was one of our best cheerers by the time she graduated. So something to kind of give them hope, and not just tell them what's wrong, but also leave them with hope at the end of it. It's an art to it. Some players respond, some players don't, but you have to just give them something that they can walk away with, and they hold on to that positive and that hope, and not the negative of just like being dejected.
Very tactful. I like your approach. I think we can apply that even to conversations outside of that, give you a goal to work toward. I think that's helpful for everyone. VJ, Andrea, and Jacques, anything fun, exciting happening in your jobs right now?
So I'll jump in here. Say one of the things that we are working on right now, launching, is esports. It is a big initiative for us, especially with the pandemic and not being able to kind of gather. So we recently launched a Level Next, is what we call it, on Twitch. If anyone's on Twitch, streaming on Twitch, watching on Twitch, definitely check out Level Next. We just worked with EA Sports and produced a collegiate Madden tournament. So students from various colleges compete representing their university with against other players from other colleges for up to $150,000 in cash prizes and bragging rights, obviously. So that is something that's new for us this year. That's something that we wrapping up our spring tournament, and we're getting ready to launch another what we call Rocket League Challenger Series. Rocket League may not be familiar for those who are not in esports, but it's a very popular game among esports users and players. So that's something that we're doing, something that's new for us. It's exciting. We are tapping into working with some of the biggest names in video games, EA Sports, and building those relationships. Something that is new for us, we're excited about, and it's fun, it's different, but it's something that's been spurred by the pandemic. And it's something that's we see great potential in it and great future.
And I don't know if you want me to jump in. I had lost my internet connection, so I was gone in the middle of Ron's brilliant role playing. I was taking notes. I'm like, I like the way he positioned that. But if it's okay, I'll just talk about one of the projects I'm currently working on, and it's exciting to me in a different way. Certainly we knew before the pandemic and certainly during COVID that there are a lot of folks in and around our city that are food insecure, meaning that they do not have enough food on their plates at home. And so with many kids not being physically at school where they would get 2 meals a day, many people are going hungry. And so we have a program that's a 5-month program where we are delivering snack packs. We'll deliver about 25,000 snack packs to kids throughout Metro Atlanta. And these are designed for them to take home on that Friday so that they would have food that would sustain them through the weekend until they come back to that location that following Monday. And so for us, for me, it's exciting because the joy of the impact that we're having, the kids that we're able to serve is hugely important. Cam Reddish is the face of this particular program. And so food insecurity is important to him, as is education. His mom is a principal. And so being able to do those good things and then tie a player to it that shares our love of whatever the cause is very rewarding. And so that's one of the things that we're working on now, and that will run until the end of June.
That's amazing. I think so many people are definitely grateful for that work. So I think that's an awesome project to spotlight. And Jacques, how about you?
Yeah, I echo what you just said. That's a great project for sure. For me, so we've recently entered into a partnership with the Atlanta Dream. So it makes sense for us. We're an all women's college, and they're obviously all women's basketball team. So with that project and that kind of partnership that we created and established, we're renovating our weight room with them. And I've been working with some personnel on their side to get suggestions for, the different types of equipment, the different things that we're going to add. So I think at our level, Division III, your facilities and your different spaces, they're used as a recruiting tool. And, it's just great that I get to work with people on the professional side, because there's equipment and different things that I'm learning about that I have no knowledge of. And I'm just like, I didn't even know that they made this type of weight room equipment. So the different suggestions that their personnel has for our weight room is going to pay off well for the kids at our level, because they're going to use that, and it's going to just be able to, just create an atmosphere for them to prepare and play against the athletes that they'll eventually play with. And they're going to be using some of the top of the line equipment that has been suggested from pro athletes. So it's a win-win on both situations, because the pros, they're going to use the equipment, as well as the student athletes, they're going to get, kind of an introduction to, hey, this is what the pros are using to get prepared for their competitions, and we're using the same thing. So it's a good recruiting tool. And then it's also going to just bolster kind of what we're doing on our end for our teams to just get, well prepared for their seasons as well.
That's great. I think that's very interesting. Okay, so we're going to jump into more of a fun question. What are some of the perks and benefits that come with each of your jobs? Sasha, do you want to kick us off?
I will. I have a really fun job. I think one of my favorite things is first being able to see a bunch of concerts. One in particular, Drake is my favorite. He is just the best to me. And I got to see 3 of his shows last time he was in the building. Well, little bits and pieces. During the shows, I'm usually running around with my head cut off, but being able to see the shows is a huge perk. One fun thing that we get to do is come up with certain gifts that we like to give the artists. So we get to kind of look into their background, look what they're all about, and kind of present them with this gift. Not all of them, but a lot of them. One of my favorites was Khalid. We did a scooter, one of those scooters that you ride on the road. We decked it out in all of his tour gear, and then we gave it to him. Another one was Travis Scott when he was doing his Astro World tour. We decked out the whole backstage in carnival style. So we had balloons and little treats around. One more fun thing was the Jonas Brothers. We got to do a beach themed experience backstage. So we had King of Pops, and we had beach balls everywhere. It's really fun. And I think it gets the artist, it makes them feel welcome, makes them feel like we're happy that they're there. We want them to come back. And that's the kind of experience we want to provide for everyone who comes to our building, and not just the artists, the promoters, and the people who actually are behind the scenes making the show happen. We like to take care of them as well, whether that be like with treats or brownies or a bottle of wine or champagne or something like that. Makes them feel comfortable. And that's like one of the best parts of my job and what we do.
Well, I want your job, Sasha. Sounds like a lot of fun, that's for sure.
It's a lot of hard work, but there definitely are the days where I'm like looking around, I'm like, oh my God, this is so fun. Like I have to stop and like soak it all in and be like, this is really, really cool. Because a lot of times we're just moving so fast that we don't even take a second to realize, wow, like look where I've got to, like through all this stuff, you know? Yeah. So it's very cool.
That's great. Ron, how about you?
I honestly, I don't even know if I want to go anymore. Sasha's job is so cool. No, that's a great question. One of the things that I love to travel. Like it's after sports, it's my second passion. Mm-hmm. And when you travel with a major league team, you're staying in 5-star hotels. It's a private bus to the airport. It's a first class seat on every seat throughout the plane. They're serving you steak or Chick-fil-A or whatever you want on the flight. It's the most comfortable travel experience. We have the security is easy. So whenever I travel with the team, everything is so first class that when I travel, on my own, like I have points from all these. I've got hotel points, airfare points, rental car points. When I travel, I literally don't have to pay for anything. It's all free because of the points that I've accumulated. And the downside to it is whenever I do go to Hartsfield and I have to go through the regular TSA with everybody else, like it's ruined my own personal travel just because it's like, where's my first class seat or where's my steak when it's ruined. It's totally ruined just like regular travel for me. So if you ever travel with me, I can be a little bit of a snob because of just, again, what I'm used to, but I've worked on it, and yeah, it's just, travel is like, I'm really good at booking and everything now. It's a gift now because it's just what I've been doing over the last decade or so.
Glamorous. I like it.
Yeah, I know. I sound so glamorous. It's right.
I love that.
We're totally going to shift gears. Does anyone want to chat about a challenge they might encounter in the industry? Maybe something not as glamorous.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. I think for me, with COVID came with a lot of challenges. So our sports team, we normally have different sports played during different semesters. So the challenge was we normally would have our fall sports segment, then we'll have our spring sports segment. We had all of our sports at the same time during the spring. So me being our sort of, kind of resident event manager in a way, I had to coordinate schedules and practice schedules, game schedules, reschedules for all of our teams at the same time. So I was going to, 3 and 4 games a week. And, there would be, I can speak on it now. There would be kids or different things that had like COVID and different things like that. So we would have to turn around and reschedule games. And all right, now I have to call our transportation and say, hey, well, cancel the bus. We don't need the bus anymore. We have to cancel meals. And there was so much from a logistical standpoint that we just had to alter and go about on a day-to-day basis because kids were getting tested one day before a game. So it's just like, all right, well, is everybody going to have a negative test for us to go to play? So we're really on edge, and our staff had to be real flexible. So that wasn't fun for me being the person that pretty much had to amend all the details if something didn't go as planned. So, I'm thankful that this past Wednesday was our last game for all of our sports. So now I'm just like, all right, I get to enjoy my weekend and no more I get weekends off now. And I don't have to be here late at night, not working 12-hour days on some days. So I'm just like, all right, now I need to just relax and unwind, get a massage or something because I deserve it at this point. We went through a lot this spring semester for sure.
And I was just going to touch on one of the things that you said that is a challenge. I know all of this stuff sounds really glamorous, but literally, in our roles, you're working evenings, holidays, weekends, very long hours. And so it can be a challenge to have work-life balance. It can be a challenge when you look at your friends that may be traveling and you're like, oh, I got 3 games this week, or Sasha might have 3 games and 2 concerts and something else. And so I think just the challenge of time and making sure that you do take time for those massages when you can get them in. But really, as you think about careers in sports, make sure that you also consider the hard work that goes in and what you have to give up in order to make this career happen. And so just want to point that out to everyone. Holidays, evenings, weekends. And when folks say, what are you doing for Christmas? It's like, oh, well, we have a game on Christmas Day, or we have a game on Thanksgiving, and everybody else is traveling to be with family. And so that can really, present some challenges.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and throw something additional in there. There's been times where I had to miss out on some of those holidays with family just due to everything that Andrea just talked about. So I would say, it's fun and it's glamorous and it sounds cool. Just talking about we get free gear, free food, and all the whole nine, but it comes with a cost. So definitely be prepared. But on the flip side of it, there's times where you have to be selfish and kind of say, you know what, hey, work's still gonna be here. I need a vacation or I need a day off. So that's something as a young professional that I'm just trying to earn my stripes and do certain things and not take days off. But you just have to be selfish at times and say, you know what, I need it. And you have to recognize that for yourself because certain people, your managers and the people that are above you, they're not always going to say, hey, well, you look like you need a day off or whatever that looks like, but you have to be selfish in those ways and kind of, set those standards and kind of those, just those guidelines for yourself.
Yeah, and I can definitely say I can vouch for that 100%. We have busy days, long days, but you definitely have to make time to treat yourself. And just like Jacques just said, being a young professional, I started with the Atlanta Hawks as an intern in 2013, and being young in the industry and also being a woman in the industry, it could be hard kind of getting your voice heard or in a room full of people with really big voices and ideas. So that has been something that I had to kind of grow into, and I'm still working on just making sure to feel confident in my ideas and to share my ideas and in my questions. That has been something. I'm very lucky to be in an organization where we have so many awesome boss women in high positions that I can look up to. And I think it's really important that I have those, just because making your voice heard and not falling behind in a big room is something that can be challenging. And also having so many different things that's coming in at the same time. So workload and managing your workload, especially in our type of industry where every day is something different and many different things on your plate at one time. So balancing your workload and being heard in a room full of people is two things that I think is really important and something that can be worked on.
I think that's a great point you bring up. And Andrea, I'm curious, what has your experience been being a female in the industry?
It has been, it's funny when Sasha was talking, I was like, that is my younger self, and things that I'm still working on. But I think part of that challenge as a woman is really what she mentioned about having your voice heard at the table. I have been in scenarios where I have said an idea and it kind of landed flat. And then, 10 minutes later, someone else said that same idea, but said it in a way that was different and more forceful and confident. And they were like, man, that's a great idea. And then I'm sitting there going, I just said that. I said that same 100%. Thing. And so I think that, finding that voice and being confident in it has been, for me, the biggest challenge as a woman in sports. I don't feel like there have been these other barriers. But I take that back. There are other times too where you'll be in conversations and these are the good old boy conversations and you're on the outside and everybody has the inside information and knowledge on what they're talking about, whether it may or may not be work related, but it's just not in your kind of conversation and dialogue and experience. And so how do you then integrate into that and make yourself be a part of those conversations? So kind of the same, but a little different. But I think that too has been a challenge. The good news is, and particularly in our organization, and I think we're fortunate, we have women on our executive leadership team. We had the first chief diversity and inclusion officer in the NBA who was a woman. Our head of HR and now our chief people officer is a woman. Our CMO is a woman. And then we also have women of color in these very high positions. And so it has been helpful to see that. and then to identify folks that can be mentors and give you guidance along the way. And so I would encourage the young people to do that. Certainly to find mentors that look like you, but then find mentors that are completely opposite so that you're getting different input and perspectives. Those are some of the challenges, but there's a lot of upside when you see people that look like you having some great success.
100%.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing that. And Andrea, thank you for sharing that advice. I think our participants can all benefit from that. So as we wrap up this section, I'm going to pass it back to Michael, and we are going to go into step 2 of our exercise.
Yep, and we're gonna do 2 of them now. So we're gonna do your spark and the growing interest. So just like last time, have that pen and paper or your notepad up, and we're gonna write a sentence or 2 on each of these. So if you go to the next one, this is your spark, and the spark is essentially the thing that's supposed to catch someone, like catch their ear as you're talking about it. Doesn't have to be about sports. This is like with the background of like sports and entertainment, but just using sports as an example. And actually a really good one that was said on the call was like by Andrea at the very beginning, because everyone introduced themselves, which is basically an elevator pitch. And Andrea mentioned at the beginning that while she didn't play sports in high school or college, that she kept the stats for the varsity basketball team, which let her stay close to the sports, right? Now, that's a really interesting spark that you didn't actually play sports, but you were close to it, right? And it's like, oh, that's how you maintained this interest. And that's a thing that's now noticeable and different about you that you're able to remember. So as an example here, going along the line of this, high schooler who's from Duluth, this could be a sentence or a couple of sentences like, when I was in 9th grade, my coach told me that I was good at leadership, and that pointed me towards things that I could do other than just playing sports, like managing sports, or coaching sports, or things of that nature. So write down that sentence or 2. That's step 2 of this. So you've got your beginning, which is just like, where are you from? What do you do? What do you like? Your spark, which is kind of your hook. It's the thing that's the other thing people call it actually, is your hook, the thing that will catch people's eye or catch people's ear. And then step 3 here, on the next page, is your growing interest, which is how you continue to develop experience and expand upon your interest. Playing off the panelists still, Ron mentioned a really good one here of, I was interested in baseball and I was fascinated by, how did a freshman get on the team, but a senior didn't. And then he mentioned that he not only finished his bachelor's, but then he went and did an MBA, and then he did a second master's, right? Growing his experience and growing his background and his interest to ultimately be prepared and what he felt would make him ready to go into this industry. So that's at a more, advanced stage in Ron's case. For a high schooler, this could be something as simple as, since then I've become interested in sports management because I hear people like Ron talk. And I would like to become maybe a manager at a professional team or be involved in some part of the management function or administration function of a professional team. And that's the part where you can start to talk about, what you're interested in, what you want. Again, if you're in an elevator with someone that has your dream job, you want to be able to speak directly, but also be interesting so you can connect with them on a personal level and make your interests known. So you should now have all 3 of these written down. We'll circle back to this at the very end, but you have your beginning, which is just a brief summary of you, your spark, the hook to catch people, and then your growing interest of how you've continued to develop experience or grow your interest over time.
Great. Thank you, Michael. I'm actually over here taking notes myself, so I think we can all learn from this. Does anyone have any questions for Michael on your elevator pitch? Okay. If you do, again, just throw them in the chat and we're happy to answer. So now we're going to move into our 3rd and final portion of the panel, and we're going to chat about breaking into the sports and entertainment industry. So VJ, I want to start with you. Do you have advice on how someone can get into the industry?
Yes, I don't think there's one set way to get into the industry. So explore the avenues that are around you or in front of you, and take chances. I got started in the sports industry while I was in college, working with the majors program, the club there, in which we volunteered at local golf tournaments. And I got to work with a lot of catering services. I got to work with a lot of event services. That's why I learned, like, wow, I love events. I love something going from a concept to approval to, hey, now you can actually experience it. You're on site, you're getting to touch and experience. So that's why I learned. I love seeing stuff going from its infancy all the way through completion. Now that process changed for me, like what things I like to work on changed for me. But I took advantage of what was in front of me, being that I went to a small private college in the middle of nowhere. I had to take advantage. There wasn't a major sports team around me. Small college, sports weren't that big where I went to. So I took advantage of what was around me. And then following college, I got an internship at the Georgia Dome. And that really opened my eyes up to all the industries that were outside of the professional teams and the college teams. There's a lot of agencies, there's a lot of marketing and advertising companies that really make a lot of these things come together. So that's where I learned about the behind the scenes companies like Learfield that I work for now.
Awesome. That's actually a great segue. Jumping into internships, does anyone want to talk about their experience with internships and how you found them?
I can touch on this one. When I was in college, I went to Kennesaw State University. I don't know if I mentioned, but they had a music and entertainment business program that I joined when I did figure out what I wanted to the field I kind of wanted to get in. And then able to be in that certificate program, I had to participate in internships. My very first one was on campus. So I was booking concerts for on-campus shows. And that's something that kind of really built my resume a little bit and kind of got my feet wet. And I think that is something that really led me into getting the internship over at that time, Phillips Arena. So I've been in my position for like 6.5 years, but before that I was an intern in the exact same department I'm working in today. And that I think was the turning point in me figuring out where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do with my career and how I wanted it to grow. So I was in a little bit of a different position within that department. I was doing arena marketing. But I think that relationship that I built with my current bosses to today was something that helped me get the position. So I was there for 4 months. And once I left, I stayed in touch. I came back and volunteered a little bit when I could and when they needed help. And then when they finally did have a position open, I applied and I was able to connect and get an interview. So I think it was just something that really catapulted my career, just having those internships alone.
Yeah, I would like to add quickly to that. I had a similar experience to Sasha. So I think she touched on a lot of key points about, just maintaining those relationships and having good first impressions and kind of letting that kind of carry yourself through to, what could potentially come next. I think that's how I was able to get an internship. I started off as a student athlete, and I'm sure, a lot of you just being at the high school age, you run into athletes, and not to really put people in a bubble, but you run into people that are like your quote unquote jocks and different things like that. But for me, what the point I'm really trying to hit on is just to be a good person and to have a good first impression. I think that's what ultimately led me when I did make the ask to my administrator at the time that I was working in the department, say, hey, I need this internship to graduate. Could I work under you and intern under you? He was just like, hey, well, I met you. You're a good guy. You play for the basketball team. Sure. Come right on. So I think that having a solid first impression and him just knowing that I was a solid individual led him to say, hey, come on and join us. That's not a problem at all. But the point I'm going to drive home is that closed mouths don't get fed. So you have to make that ask and kind of make yourself available to say, hey, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. This is the opportunity that I want to seek. Can you help me? But without me opening my mouth and saying, hey, could you help me out? That opportunity would have never came into fruition. And then that led into me getting my master's for practically free because I made that initial ask as an intern. 4 months later, I was getting ready to graduate, didn't have a job lined up. He said, hey, come get your master's. We'll pay for it. We'll pay for the most of it. And you'll continue to work for us, get some more experience under your belt over these next 2 years as a graduate assistant. So, speak up for what you want, and you never know what opportunities could fall into your lap.
That's awesome advice. Thank you for sharing that. So I think, as we can all see, internships are very important. They can teach you a lot about what you like, what you don't like. So for our panelists, how would you recommend that participants go about finding an internship?
I can.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I read a great book. The book was called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty by Harvey McKay. Dig your well before you're thirsty. And what the synopsis of the book was, reach out to people and develop your network before you actually need them. Again, great book. But one example of it was someone, let's say I am a junior at, Morehouse College. Shout out to you, Andrea, my Spelman sister. Oh, yeah. If I know I want to work in college athletics one day, and I'm sitting on a panel and Jacques is telling me about Agnes Scott, I dig my well before I'm thirsty. I'm not going to wait until I've graduated to reach out and ask him for a job. I'm going to email him, after this panel, or message him on LinkedIn and say, hey, I would really love to get to know, you, and, you share with me any advice that you have on getting into college athletics. My story was I wanted to work in baseball. I was in, Graves Hall at Morehouse, and I had a letter written to every major league club as a junior and sent 31 letters, one to each club and to Major League Baseball. And I got responses. A lot of them were saying, no on internships, but they would love to, just talk to me and just, answer any questions. And so that's what I did. And when I'm speaking to someone like Jacques, hey, you have a job that I would love to have at some point down the road. What did you study in college? What did you do when you got out of college? What did you do to put yourself in the best position that you could to get into that role? What are some of your regrets? And I'm going to learn the things that he did that worked for him. And I'm also going to ask him, what did you do that you wish you hadn't done, and learn from his mistakes, so that when I come out, I can avoid those and just kind of, position myself as best as I could. So again, dig your well before you're thirsty. My mom would be so proud of me for recommending a book, because I'm not a huge reader, but that book was transformational for me, especially the timing that I read it, as a college student.
That's great. Thank you. And Michael actually shared a link to that book in the chat for anyone who's interested. I know I'm definitely going to go pick up a copy myself. Andrea, I know you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, two things. One, I just want to say that this sports industry is very small, so making those relationships to be able to find those types of internships is key. Just on this call right here, I found out that Ron is my Morehouse brother. There's a connection that we have outside of this, right? And so sports is very small. So I encourage everyone to definitely read that book. But I was just going to say, for our organization, we have an internship program. It is for recent college graduates, and it is a paid opportunity with benefits. It is season long, and it is the way many people get into the organization, i.e. as Sasha was able to establish her way. It is in a variety of careers all across the organization. So we have internships from HR over to the arena side, to legal, to marketing, to community, you name it. We have internships in those areas, and we're not the only team that does it. I know the Braves have an internship program, and I'll drop this in the chat as well. I would encourage folks to go to teamworkonline.com, and that is where they can find all jobs in all sports industries there, and that will include internship opportunities when they're available. But at least you can start seeing what the jobs are, what the skills are that are necessary for those jobs, and start to look at the description. So as you're building out opportunities for yourself right now, you can do that with an eye on where you want to go. Oh, they're looking for this. Let me make sure in my internship or in my schoolwork, I'm developing those skills. And so I will drop that in the chat, but just wanted to let folks know, explore those opportunities, read that book, build those relationships.
Very helpful. Thank you for that. And so as we kind of wrap things up here, I'd love to hear from each of our panelists. Do you have advice that you would give to all of our participants about how to break into the industry?
I'll start. I would just say to get involved, get out there and try new things and build relationships and maintain those relationships and nurture those relationships. I think that's the biggest thing that helped me get to where I am today and still trying to grow and in this industry. So those are the main few things. Build that resume, just like Andrea was talking about. If I would have had that advice to look up these internships and see what they're looking for prior to having to do that, that's huge. And that was so good. So yes, absolutely.
I'll chime in next. For me, again, something mentioned in the book, I feel like I should get some of his profits from the book because I talk about it so much. But a piece of advice that he gave is learn what, if you're listening to, people from the Atlanta Hawks speak about what they're looking for, and you are a college freshman or, you're 2 years away from graduating and looking for work, what are they looking for? And then go out and do those things. In my personal example, I was speaking to someone from the Boston Red Sox, and they told me about the things, what they're looking for. And they said that, they look for someone who shows initiative. And that can be in any way that you want it to be. So what worked for me, again, this is just what I did. There wasn't a scouting or baseball course at Morehouse. There wasn't a scouting or how to run a baseball team at Ohio University. Of course, my AirPods are dying. You all hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, my AirPods just died on me. But there wasn't a baseball course in college. So I went to a minor league team and I just wrote scouting reports on my own, and I wrote up the entire roster. And so when I went into an interview, hey guys, here is a write-up on every player. Is it the best scouting report you've ever read? No. My point in doing this project was not to show you my scouting skills. It was just to show you that as a college student who's doing 2 master's degrees right now, I went to 47 games and paid the $10 to get on, the extra $15 on top of that to sit behind home plate and to write each player. And that's my dedication to learning and getting better. So it's not the result, it's just the initiative. And so it worked. Crazy enough, it actually worked. And so that's the advice that I give people is, find ways to stand out, find ways to, once you know what you want to do, what can make you stand out, even if it's not offered in a college class, find a way to market for, a local company, find a way to, put on an event, that's the biggest advice that I can give you guys.
I would like to hit on that as well. I think just being open to new opportunities and volunteering and just seeing what's going on in your area. So if you're in Atlanta and, there's a McDonald's high school basketball game going on, reach out, try to figure out who's going to be involved of gathering those volunteers or somebody in that organization to say, hey, I don't want anything. I just want to volunteer. I just want to just be around and to kind of be a part of this opportunity. So I would say definitely kind of look out for those opportunities where you are. I don't know where a lot of you are from, but if there's a minor league team, if there's a high school basketball team, if there's a small college team, something that's involved in sports going on in your area, just don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, can I volunteer? Can I shadow you for a day or for a few hours just to kind of figure out whether you would like it or not like it? Because I think that's how a lot of us kind of figured out what we want to do. Is just like, we had those volunteer opportunities, we had those internships, we had things going on that we wanted to be a part of and figured out, all right, I don't like this so much, but I do like this part. Let me see if I can kind of get my foot in this area. And the last thing I would say, just to build relationships. I think Ron hit it right on the head. You don't want to ask for, you don't want to ask for help in certain areas to get a job when you see a job is posted and say, all right, now let me go reach out to Ron. He does work for the Braves, doesn't he? Let me see if he can help me get this job. Like, kind of massage that relationship and build your, just build your network up from an early time. And then when it is time for somebody to, they have a job opening in their organization or they know somebody at another organization, it's that much easier to make that ask and to really just get a productive response out of that relationship.
So I think everyone's hit on a lot of great things in building your network, seeking out those opportunities wherever you can, the volunteer opportunities, internship opportunities. But one of the things that I thought was very important for me that I had to work on was selling myself. I had to learn myself. I had to learn my strengths. I was a person that, and I am a person that I love my actions to speak for themselves. And I'm like, hey, you see what I can do, you value me, and he's like, hey, I want you to have this opportunity, BJ, and whatnot. But I had to learn, like, hey, the Braves are looking for someone who shows initiative, someone who is a go-getter. I had to learn myself, like, hey, what have I done in my past? What do I do on a daily basis that speaks to that? I can articulate that. And I think today, these things that these challenges and these skills that we're building as elevator pitches and things of that nature, those are going to help you to learn yourself. It's going to help you to work on articulating, hey, here's my strength. Hey, you're going to figure out that, oh, here's my weakness. I need to work on this. Okay, here's how I kind of turn that into a positive, something of that nature. So when you get that opportunity, you've done the work, you've built your network. Now you actually have an interview. How do you ace that interview and say, hey, I want to hire so and so. How do you land that job? So I had to work on selling myself. I had to work on opening my mouth. I know Jacques talked about that, and speaking up for myself. My action, I thought, or my work, I thought spoke for itself. But and I'm sorry, I'm going a little long, but I had an internship, and it was me and another intern. He was good, but I was definitely better. But the GM at the Georgia Dome was talking to someone over her, and he's like, oh, he's great, he's this, he's that kind of thing. I was like, man, why didn't he bring up me? But I never had a conversation with the GM. He may have saw me working hard, but I didn't know. My other intern, he talked to everybody around the building. So people just knew him and they felt he did a great job, but I was the one doing all the work, and he was the one talking. So I had to learn, okay, I need to sell myself a little more. I need to communicate. I need to, broaden my horizons with people who know me. So work on yourself and selling yourself, knowing yourself, and putting yourself in those right.
And the only thing that I'll add is just to stay abreast of the industry and the field you want to work in. What are the trends? Where is it going? I mean, as you talk about this elevator pitch, I mean, I think people would be impressed if they're like, wow, you knew that and you're only a high school senior, right? And right now with technology, you have access to so much information that you can go online and read and research. But I just say stay abreast of, again, the field that you want to be in. And one other note I'll make about building and keeping relationships, and it'll apply some at your level, but certainly as you get older, is to remember that those relationships are a two-way street. And so it's not always hey, what can you do for me? What can you do for me? But what is the exchange that you can give back? It may be, hey, I read this article and I thought you might be interested in it. And so I'm going to send it to you, right? So there's some reciprocity in that relationship. Certainly at your level, again, you may not have all of you may not be equipped with all of the tools and the resources to be able to do that, but still start thinking about it. Because one thing that people don't want is to look and go, oh gosh, there's John asking me for something again, right? Like, let's give something back to them. And you'd be surprised by the power of still a handwritten thank you note. So I'm a little old school, but I think they're important.
I would very much agree with you on that. Well, thank you all. This is fantastic advice. I think a lot of tangible action items that all of our participants can walk away with. So again, thank you for that. I'm going to hand it over to Michael one last time, and we will wrap up our elevator pitch.
All right, I'll try to go quickly here because I know there's some more left. So the last part, now you've got your 3 sections. Last part is why this matters. Basically, why what you're saying matters. This is the part where you can be a little bit more forceful, and you should probably say what you want in this part of the conversation. If it's that you're looking at maybe getting an internship over the summer, this is a great part to say. Not to ask for an internship, but to say, I'm looking for an internship that I can start at this summer, and being clear about that. So in this case, this is like very, very broad. This is still in our example of a ninth grader of saying, okay, so I've told you all these things and I'm still figuring out exactly what I want to do, but I think I want to work directly with players after college so that I can help teams be successful. And that's very much in a vein of like just starting to think about like what you want and what you want to end up looking like. You can be more forceful than this, but it depends on the conversation. Sasha mentioned the importance of developing and building relationships. This step is where the most art and personal choices comes into it, because you need to think about, how strong do you want to be here? Do you just want to talk about what your dreams are and your goals are, or do you want to talk about, how this person can help you on your next step? And that just depends on where you are in your relationship. So if you click to the next one, we've got the summary of the 4 steps and what it could potentially look like if you have it all charted out. An elevator pitch is usually going to be 1 minute to 2 minutes long. And if you wanted an example of a place where you can go use this immediately, one idea would be to just go set up an informational interview with someone that you admire. This could be maybe a coach at your school, a player that you have heard of, maybe it's a panelist on this call. People are very, very open to just having conversations and talking with people. And the elevator pitch is going to be the first thing that you'll cover on that call, where the person you'll be on the phone with will say, so tell me about yourself. And you get to try out your elevator pitch. Just as a quick example of how easy it is to set up an informational interview, I have a friend who freshman year of college emailed the CEO of McDonald's. And all he said was, hey, my name is so-and-so. I'm from this college. I've really admired your career. Do you have 30 minutes that we could connect to talk about your favorite book? And the CEO of McDonald's, who he didn't know at all, said yes. And they got on the phone and talked about the CEO of McDonald's favorite book for 30 minutes. He ended up writing an article about how he did that, like in his senior year of college. But that's how easy it can be to set up these sorts of conversations. And it can be with people in your network that you already know. It can be with people who you've never met before, but you can find their contact information. And as long as you're honest and transparent, it can be really easy to set up those sorts of conversations.
A great story. I think we should all try that and kind of see if we have any success. Well, awesome. Thank you again for walking us through that exercise, Michael. And now I would love to introduce our president and CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Metro Atlanta, Kwame Johnson. He's just going to jump in and give you some final pieces of advice as we wrap up our panel.
Thank you, Alex. I want to just first thank all the panelists. Man, I've been sitting here writing all these notes down. It's a lot of just good information. So let's give them a round of applause for all their wisdom and their time today. I also want to thank the Young Leadership Council for hosting this great panel. Just a lot of great information. And I know we're going to record this and share it because I think everyone on here should listen to this more than just once. This is about life. This is about career, not just sports. These pieces of golden nuggets that you've heard today can be very helpful as you move along in your career. I was a student athlete as well. My sport was basketball. I grew up in Syracuse, New York, and I loved basketball so much that we would actually shovel the snow off the court and play. Every day we played basketball. But I just wasn't good in basketball. My parents told me I should go to track because my father ran track. My brothers and sisters all ran track. In my junior year, I decided to finally, buckle down and ran track. And I ran track for 1 year, and I was top 20 in the 400 in the whole United States. And I had scholarships being offered to me from every major track club, every school you could think of. But when I was 17, I also was hanging out in the streets and doing dumb things and found myself facing many years behind prison. And all those scholarships went away. And I had to go away for a year, and all that was in jeopardy. But my track coach, who was my big brother at the time, stepped in and helped me get through that. And when I got out of jail, there was one school, Hampton University, that offered me a partial scholarship. And I went off to Hampton and I ran track there. So what I will say is that sports is a vehicle. It doesn't necessarily have to be the end result. You've heard about different careers, different things people are doing with sports. I thought I would have to get to the NBA for me to be successful. The vehicle for me was to get at least a scholarship and go to college. And from there, I did other things. And now I'm president and CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters. So use sports as a vehicle. It doesn't have to be the end result. And the last piece I'd like to hit on, which a number of you all have talked about on the panel, is confidence and presence. Too often, young people do not have the confidence they need to be successful in the classroom, to be successful at work. You have to be confident. You have to articulate yourself. I see Austin on the Zoom right now, and Austin spoke recently on the news for us about his relationship with Dallas. And Austin did a great job talking, speaking, looking clearly, speaking clearly, and having that confidence. I encourage you to work on your confidence. And that could be just speaking up in the classroom, answering a question, talking to your big brother or big sister about ways that you can improve your confidence, talking to your parents about ways you can improve your confidence, because that's going to help you throughout life and throughout career. So again, I want to just thank you all, thank everybody for being a part of this. And I learned a lot, and I encourage you all to look at this multiple times and let it all sink in.
Awesome. Thank you, Kwame. That's great advice and such an inspiring story. I know everyone will definitely walk away from this. Okay, so as we kind of wrap things up, does anyone in the audience have questions for either Kwame or for any of our panelists? Feel free to either drop those in the chat, or you can come on camera, unmute yourself and ask.
I wanted to just say thank you to all the panelists, and thank you, Kwame, for saying hello to Austin, making sure he's awake over there on a Saturday morning. I wanted to say thank you to Tara and everybody putting on. My name's Dallas Bentley. I'm a big brother of Austin. No relation, even though we both have Texas names. It was awesome to hear about all of your paths, and I learned a lot. I'm working on my elevator pitch right now. And Jacques, I live in Decatur, so I'm across the tracks from you. So I hear it before you do when it comes through. What I wanted to do was actually ask Jacques, in the interest of kind of taking the next step, is since you're so close to me and Austin's my little, would there be an opportunity for us to come by Agnes Scott and kind of maybe shadow you for an hour or two, maybe buy you a cup of coffee or something, and learn a little bit about what you do over there?
Sure, let's set it up. I just dropped my email in the chat. Feel free to shoot me an email, and we can definitely set that up. That's not a problem at all. I definitely welcome that for sure.
Thanks so much.
This is awesome. This is great. Talk about action items. Anyone else before we close things out?
Yes, my name is Candy Chambers. I just want to know for the video that we actually, this whole conference that you did, where would we be able to find it so we can go back to it and hear it?
Perfect. Thank you. Tara just dropped that in the chat. And you'll also find in the chat, so we'll have a recording to this session. As Kwame mentioned, we recommend that everyone go back, listen to it more than once. You'll probably pick up different pieces of advice each time you listen to it. Secondly, we are dropping a kind of post-attendee survey just to see what you learned from this panel. Did you enjoy it? What could we improve on going forward? And thirdly, we will drop a worksheet in there, really just following up on this elevator pitch exercise that Michael led for everyone. And I think that will be some good homework, if you will, going forward, but a great way to work on your personal brand and set yourself up for success. And again, just in closing, we want to thank all of our sponsors, Monet Gratitude, Fiserv, CLA Foundation, and UPS. And I want to thank all of our attendees for joining. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us. We really appreciate it. And most importantly, I would love to thank all of our panelists for joining. I know I have learned a lot. I can attest that probably most of our participants have learned a lot. So thank you for all of your wisdom and your advice. And Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Metro Atlanta, we definitely appreciate it. And if anyone has questions, feel free to stay on a few extra minutes. We're happy to chat with you. But otherwise, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their weekend.